This narrated PowerPoint shows you an example of a qualitative study. I was working with another guy who I had known from conferences, and he was working on a textbook, and he had asked me to use it with my students. And the benefit was students got a free textbook, and he got feedback on his work as he was revising it. So he suddenly stopped working and retired, and I'm not sure why, but he said I could continue using his work in my classes. So thought I would show you this study that was part of that. So here is a letter, and I'm going to talk and advance the slides, and you can go back and you can stop the slides and read them more slowly if you like. But this guy was trying to do a study at a business magazine, and this is the letter that he used to secure it. And you can see that he's informing the reader about the class and about what his goals are. Assures them it will be unobtrusive. And he ends there with his contact information. Okay, so here's the memo that he wrote to his professor about what he was going to be doing. He starts by writing about the location and a little bit about the magazine, how many full-time staff they have, and all that sort of thing. Under writing materials, when he mentions that they produce the following writing materials, he puts short stories. What he really means there is articles for this magazine, not fiction. Infographic stories are what we simply call infographs. You can see that as opposed to photo essays, which would be a series of photos with perhaps a little bit of text. An infograph would be just a single image that would provide information. But these are the types of artifacts that he's interested in studying. Okay, so here's an artifact that he received from the editor. It is signed by the editor, so it looks like it's something that he took some time to sit down and write. It isn't absolutely clear if this is something he just gives to everybody or if he uh, provided it strictly for the researcher. And here you can see, here's the beginning of some deep description. He's describing the setting, some of the businesses around this office, then going up in the elevator and other people with him, and just getting into the reception area, which is fairly small, and then meeting Steve, the editor. I'm going to make this book available to you on Folio. It's got a lot of good general information, just as because I know a lot of times students are interested in doing this type of research, not necessarily on this topic, but this this type of qualitative research, perhaps even ethnographic, like this one is going to be to some extent. Uh, so it's just more information, more background reading you can do to help you to improve your work. It's a description of Steve. His initial meeting with him. Here's an example of a type of map of a workplace. It can be helpful to you as you think about the hierarchy, who has the nice corner office, or just thinking in terms of orienting yourself as you write your report. And so here's a more specific, deep description of the office. And here's an organizational chart showing the hierarchy of publication. If you look at this, you'll see that Steve is kind of a little below the middle. And the researcher has started out with the chairman, the chief executive officer, and other people who are above Steve. And here he's written about the titles of each one of these people and their responsibilities. I don't have a copy of the entire report, but I have a copy of the table of contents we'll see at the end. And then here's some of his observational field notes in his journal. A lot of times what you can do with these observational field notes is you can figure out a way to code them if you're looking for a particular material, or if you want to highlight where particular people come into play. Like if you were interested in the relationship of the art director to everybody else, you could use a highlighter of a particular color to highlight the art director throughout the field notes, so that you have what you're looking for as you go through. These are uncoded here, as the note indicates at the bottom. We'll see some that are coded in just a minute. And there you go. There's some coding. Start doing some annotations in the margin. He's going back and writing about the some of his observations, and all this is going to start becoming his final report. Some more. You can see that the TN refers to theoretical and the MN refers to methodological. And so that has to do with different parts of the field notes that may pertain to different parts of his report. Just a way of organizing your material so you can access it quickly, especially as you're writing. You don't have to stop and hunt around for different things. So here's his memo on office as workspace / social space. Of course, not all this material is going to wind up being used in the final report, but it's there if he needs it. And so here's a flowchart showing how an article is written, and the steps that it goes through revision, editing, group editing, to reach that final product. And here's a inventory of his writing artifacts, different types of written materials that he gathered during this process. And now we're getting into some, it says genre analysis, or I think it was rhetorical analysis of the, which is a more general term for genre analysis. But he's looking at the types of uh, ways to analyze different types of articles, and this one specifically is analyzing this particular issue of this magazine. They have a best places to work issue. Again, you can go back and pause and read this more slowly at your leisure. There's an audience analysis. And he's reporting back to his professor. I don't have anything like that required for this class because you'll all be doing different types of projects. Okay, this is an indexed recorded interview in the sense that you can see where it says like 7:52 5 W's. That means that 7 minutes and 52 seconds into this recorded interview is where the Stacy talks about the 5 W's. So that's good to have something like that so that you can move easily and quickly around something like a recorded interview when you need to get information from it. And it's a good idea to record interviews when you're allowed to do so. And you always ask, and if they say no, then of course you don't do it, and you take notes. And if they do say that you can record it, uh, then you do so, but you also take notes in case the recording fails, and then you're left with nothing but your memory. Okay, so this one is it's kind of an interview using uh, direct quotes. Here's an example of handwritten material that might wind up in a portfolio or a notebook devoted to a study. Okay, here's an analysis of article production, and he breaks it down according to the different people and what their responsibilities are. And so here we're getting to the end. You can see that it begins, this is his getting into his table of contents, and it also includes the abstract. It is a descriptive abstract, that is, it simply tells you what is in it. It's not an executive summary. You can see he's kind of pulling it all together, writing about the staff, the workspace, the social spaces. And you notice that his appendices would have a lot of writing artifacts and things like that for someone who's reading it to refer to if they would like. There you have it. Questions? I'll see you online.